Hello, everyone, and welcome to OncoDaily. I'm Amalya Sargsyan, medical oncologist and head of intelligence and research at OncoDaily. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Edgar Braendle, who is the Chief Medical Officer at AVEO Oncology. Thank you for accepting our invite and being with us today, Dr. Braendle.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me.
So, for starting, can you a little bit give us about your background?
Yeah, by training, I'm a physician scientist. I'm board certified oncologist. And after my academic career, I joined the industry. And initially, I was working for 10 years for Novartis, and I was focusing on oncology drug development. And with this, I was doing different stages of oncology drug development, going from discovery first into human proof of concept study as well as registration studies. At the end of my time at Novartis, I was responsible and leading precision medicine and companion diagnostic development for Novartis. So after my time at Novartis, I was working for several mid and small pharmaceutical company in oncology development, either as global head of development or chief medical officer. Before working for AVEO Oncology, I was working for Autolus Therapeutic as a global chief development officer. And with this, I was responsible for conducting the registration study, the regulatory filing, as well the successful approval of the second generation CAR T cells. So over the span of my industry experience, I was able to lead the registration program, the regulatory filing, the worldwide approval of 6 new chemical entities.
Wow, that's very impressive. And in your career, seeing so many approvals being led by you, you have made quite remarkable changes. And now, as you are the Chief Medical Officer of AVEO, can you a bit explain what is your role here and what is your vision in this company now?
As Chief Medical Officer of AVEO Oncology, I'm responsible for the development, the successful development of our AVEO Oncology drug pipeline. As you probably know, we have one marketed product, which is FOTIVDA. And so we're still doing further studies in order to advance our understanding of FOTIVDA. And I'm responsible for these kind of studies. And FOTIVDA, as you probably know, is a potent and selective VEGF inhibitor. It was approved in 2021, and it was approved for relapse and refractory advanced renal cancer. So this is one part of my responsibility. The other part of my responsibility is to further oversee the development of our pipeline products, which are, for example, Ficlatuzumab or AB380. Now, we are always interested in welcoming partnership and collaboration, whether that is from the academic side or with industry partner. And because of that, I'm together with my colleagues from AVEO Oncology as well from LG Chem, I'm heavily involved in business development activities.
Thank you for sharing your pipeline. Actually, I was going to ask next about drugs that are already on the market. And as I was going through the pipeline that the company has, and of course, FOTIVDA was one of the ones that is already on a later phases of research. So maybe we speak a bit more about the results and data on tivozanib. It's a VEGF-4 TKI, which is approved, as you mentioned, for RCC. Can you share a bit on how it works, how it differs from the already was on the market, and how are the results, and how you oversee this going further in the market?
So, as you rightly said, FOTIVDA is one of our commercial products. And I think in contrast to other VEGF TKIs, it's a very potent and selective VEGF inhibitor. And it was approved, as I indicated, in 2021 for relapsed and refractory advanced renal cancer in a clinical setting for patients following 2 or more systemic therapies. And this study was basically, or the approval was based on a study which is called the TiVo3 study. And this was a randomized phase 3 study, which on a one arm compared FOTIVDA monotherapy against sorafenib. And at the end of last year, we published a sub-analysis of this TiVo3 study. And we specifically looked into those patients who have previously treated with a checkpoint inhibitor. And we were interested in how is the clinical benefit and the performance of FOTIVDA in this clinical setting in comparison to sorafenib. And what we found is that there is a substantial overall survival benefit for FOTIVDA in comparison to sorafenib. The hazard ratio was 0.69. Now, the other study which we have published last year was the so-called tivozanib study. And the main goal of the study was to evaluate if retreatment with a checkpoint inhibitor in combination with FOTIVDA after prior treatment with a checkpoint inhibitor would provide benefit. Now, I think what you see in clinical practice is that frequently patients with advanced and metastatic renal cancer in a first-line setting are treated with a checkpoint inhibitor. And sometimes these patients, when they progress, are then rechallenged with a checkpoint inhibitor. And the question was, does in renal cancer this bring benefit to patients? And that was a question which was addressed in the tivozanib study. And so it was a randomized phase 3 study. It had in one arm, it had nivolumab plus FOTIVDA, and the control arm was FOTIVDA. Now, the study unfortunately did not meet its primary endpoint. And what this basically indicates that rechallenge with a checkpoint inhibitor in metastatic renal cancer did not provide a good outcome and have not a benefit for patients should be avoided. And I think this has also been demonstrated with other studies, like, for example, the CONTACT-3 study. But as I indicated, the control arm in the study was FOTIVDA monotherapy, and this was another important outcome of the study. What we were able to demonstrate in this study that FOTIVDA monotherapy in a second-line setting after progression of a checkpoint inhibitor showed a substantial clinical benefit with a median PFS of 9.2 months. In addition to that, because FOTIVDA is such a selective VEGF inhibitor, this therapy with FOTIVDA monotherapy was very well tolerated.
Thank you for mentioning it. You are right. The efficacy is very important, and you have mentioned very impressive hazard ratio. And for those patients who are already progressed on lines of therapy, this is indeed very remarkable. And what about safety? You briefly mentioned that it was well tolerated. Will you share a bit more details on this?
Yeah, because, in contrast to other TKIs in this area of renal cell cancer, which also inhibit other targets, FOTIVDA is a very selective VEGF inhibitor. And because of that, it's very well tolerated. And so that is something which we always, when we speak with physicians who are treating patients with FOTIVDA, this is the feedback we're getting. It's a very well tolerated therapy.
That's very impressive, especially for these metastatic patients who are not always with the best performance status. With the novel agents, we sometimes see they're very important, but not always can be used. And having a good safety profile maybe is one of the keys to get the most of the benefit. So now, as we have this good benefit of for those patients who have already progressed on prior lines, how do you see its future development? Do you see it will go a bit frontline or maybe different indications or in combinations with other treatment? What do you
Yeah,
see?
so we currently have started at the beginning of 2024, we started another study, which is called the so-called STRIKE study. And the STRIKE study is a study which is conducted by the Alliance Group. It's a corporate group study. And what this study tries to understand is the benefit of adding FOTIVDA to pembro in the adjuvant setting for high-risk renal cancer patients. Now, as you probably know, for those patients who are at high risk, they received as a standard of care pembro as an adjuvant therapy. And the question here is, does the addition of FOTIVDA, because it's so well tolerated, add clinical benefit? So this study has started at the beginning of 2025. It's a big study, approximately 1,000 patients. It's randomized on one arm. It enrolls patients who are receiving standard of care, which is pembro. And at the experimental arm of the study is a combination of pembro plus FOTIVDA.
Oh, that's very interesting and impressive. So it's going to the earlier lines, and hopefully we'll see the benefit in the advanced setting too. Will be any data that will be updated during the upcoming conferences, any news in ASCO, what we can expect?
Yeah, so for ASCO, we have 3 poster presentations. One is a sub-analysis of the tivozanib study, which I explained the re-expose and re-challenge to checkpoint inhibitor. And we were specifically interested in 2 different subgroups. As you probably know, in standard of care, patients in advanced metastatic renal cancer in a first-line setting are frequently treated with a checkpoint inhibitor. This is either with a combination of ipilimumab and nivolumab, Or the other way, how patients are treated in a first-line setting is a combination between TKIs and a checkpoint inhibitor. And so we were interested for those patients who are treated in the first-line setting with either the combination of ipi/nivo or the combination of a TKI with a checkpoint inhibitor, how is the performance of FOTIVDA monotherapy in the second-line setting after these first-line treatment? And this data will be presented at ASCO of this year. The other two presentations we have is a trial in progress. One is for our compound, which is pipeline product Ficlatuzumab, and we're currently conducting a study which is called the FIERCE Head and Neck study, and perhaps we can speak about this study. And the other compound is also a very exciting compound for us, which is AV380, which is an antibody against GDF15.
Thank you for sharing. Good luck with the presentations. Hopefully we'll get the good results at ASCO. And you mentioned about the new compounds that you have on our pipeline. Maybe you can share with us what are there and which agents do you see most promising and where to earliest expect the results and which targets they do have.
So I would like to focus on these two compounds I just mentioned, which is Ficlatuzumab and AV380. Now, Ficlatuzumab is an antibody against an HGF, and HGF is standing for hepatic growth factor. Now, the hepatic growth factor is the only ligand to the c-Met receptor. This basically means the hepatic growth factor is activating and is basically regulating the c-Met pathway. And what we know from different kind of cancer types is that those cancers in a paracrine and autocrine mechanism are secreting hepatic growth factor. So this is one thing. And we have conducted an investigator-sponsored study with Dr. Baumann in metastatic and advanced head and neck cancer. And what we did in this study for head and neck cancer, we exposed those patients to a combination of cetuximab and Ficlatuzumab. Now, it is important that in this study, patient was previously treated with chemotherapy, cisplatin-based chemotherapy, checkpoint inhibitor, as well already have received cetuximab. And what we saw when we re-exposed those patients with a combination of cetuximab and Ficlatuzumab, we saw the very impressive overall response rate of 38%. And more importantly, there were, of these 38% overall response rate, there were about 13% of patients who had a complete response rate. Interestingly, to see this was only observed in those patients which were HPV negative. Now, please keep in mind, these patients already have been treated with cetuximab and has progressed on this therapy. And again, you get to the 38% of response rate. Very impressive. And what it basically showed is two different things. Number one, that this combination of Ficlatuzumab and cetuximab can resensitize the EGFR pathway. That's number one. The second thing, it shows that this combination can overcome the resistance to cetuximab. And as a consequence of that, we have now started a study which is called the FIERCE Head and Neck study. And this is a randomized phase 3 study, a registration study. And in this registration study, it's conducted for HPV-negative patients which have previously treated with a checkpoint inhibitor as well as chemotherapy, but naive to cetuximab. And patients are randomized against either the combination of Ficlatuzumab and cetuximab or in the control arm against cetuximab. Now, this study has started at the beginning of 2024. The enrollment is going very well, and we're really looking forward and very excited about the result of the study. The other compound, which I think is important, we are very excited about, is AV380. Now, AV380 is an antibody against GDF15. And if you look to the literature, there is a growing body of literature about GDF15. Now, GDF15 is an inflammatory cytokine, and we are now getting a much better understanding about the role of GDF15 in cancer. But what is known about GDF15 is that it is one of the driving forces for cancer cachexia. And this is very interesting because we all, as oncologists, we know how much impact cancer cachexia has on the quality of life of our patient. And the other thing, which is basically there is no therapy available at this point in time in the United States, which is approved for cancer cachexia. So this is a high unmet medical need. And what we're currently conducting is a phase 1b study of this antibody in cancer cachexia patients. And this is a very exciting study because what we see already at very low doses is that we see increase in body weight, we see increase in muscle mass, and we see an improvement in patient-reported outcome. Please keep in mind, this is a phase 1 dose escalation study, but we see this already activity of this compound. So we're quite excited because our goal is really to address high unmet medical need in patients with cancer.
Wow, those two studies were very impressive. And indeed, cachexia is a big unmet need everywhere in the world, I believe, not only in the United States. And if it's successful, it will be groundbreaking for a lot of cancer types and will help patients and quality of life. And for the other study for head and neck cancer, and it's very impressive to see such huge number of complete responses for those who have already received prior lines of therapy. And wishing good luck for the registrational study. Hopefully, it will be even better when it's moved to the further and earlier lines of the treatment. So we'll expect the results very soon, I guess. And hopefully, enrollment goes well as it's now, and we'll get the good results soon. When do you expect the end of the trial? It will be upcoming.
Yeah. So we have in this study, we have different interim analysis, two interim analysis, which is because we have a dose selection in the study built in, and the interim analysis is expected somewhere within this year.
This was about the AVEO Oncology overall, and I would like to ask a few more questions about you, your career, and a bit of inspiration for young generation to go on that,
Good.
if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Yeah, let me speak a little bit about AVEO Oncology. AVEO Oncology is an oncology-focused biotech company. And I think what brings people to AVEO Oncology is our mission and our dedication to deliver a new medicine to patients with cancer in order to provide a better life for these patients. And that was also one reason I came to AVEO Oncology. Now, you may have heard, and the audience may have heard, that in the beginning of 2023, AVEO Oncology was acquired by LG Chem. And I think this is very exciting because we now have also the capability and the resources of LG Chem and LG Life Sciences. So we share our mission that we want to develop drugs in the oncology space, and we want to address high unmet medical needs. So we're working between AVEO Oncology and LG Chem, working very closely together. And the way we're currently working together is that LG Chem and LG Life Science is focusing on the preclinical development, is also working on early stage clinical development. The compounds are then transferred to us for the late stage clinical development, the regulatory filing, and then for the US commercialization. So with this shared resources and with this shared mission, I think we are very excited to bring a very differentiated and new solution to patients with cancer.
Thank you for sharing this. And how do you see the future of AVEO Oncology? What would be your most promising new developments that you would expect to see in the nearest future?
Well, as I indicated, the first next approval we hope to get, but again, we're quite excited about this, is for Ficlatuzumab. In Ficlatuzumab, the aim is to get an approval in advanced and metastatic HPV-negative head and neck cancer. And then the next stage of late-stage development will be for AV380, where our goal is to develop it in cancer cachexia. But I would encourage you and the audience to go to our website, which is aveooncology.com. You see there are a longer list of our pipeline products, specifically those which are in the early stage development, as well those which are in the preclinical setting.
Yes, you have quite remarkable pipeline of early phase research, and I see them going through the phases, and hopefully by the next time more will be on the later phases of research. So as a clinician physician who have come to industry, how was that transition? How is it different being in the clinics and now you are on the other side of developing the drugs? What would be most challenges and what are the advantages of working in this phase?
Look, I think that I think the biggest challenge here is that you don't interact with patient on a daily basis. Right? That is not what you see. But I think that the big advantage from moving into the industry is I think when you work in a clinic, you're motivated to do the best for your patient, to help patient in the best way. But it's done on a one-on-one basis. So this is one thing. When you work for the industry, the picture is different. As I indicated, I have brought 6 products to the market. And I think this is something which really is motivating me personally very much, because now you're not helping one patient on a single basis. What you're now doing is you bring products to the market which will benefit for thousands, 100,000 patients, really changing their lives. And this is a different kind of motivation, and it's a different perspective, but it's really motivating, at least for me, motivating to drive the development of these more product and bring to a broad audience of cancer patients this benefit.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's truly very inspirational. And you're right, it's not helping just one patient, but in a more broad way, and it's helping a lot of patients with the same problems. And it could be an inspiration. And what you would advise to young generation who would like to also pursue career in drug development? What's to motivate, what to focus on, what's not to be afraid?
Well, for me, what is important is that when you work in the industry, it's about teamwork, right? You work together with a big team, you work together with different specialty, and this is a huge learning opportunity. So when I joined the industry, I worked with very talented people together, whether they from biostats, whether they from clinical pharmacology, whether they biologist or safety, whatever you have, were very talented people. And this team approach really personally helped me a lot to learn, things I have not learned in medical school, right? And I was able to learn this, and this was really something which was very exciting for me. And what I learned also in the industry is it's about us. It's not about me. It's about us. And I think this was really something I really enjoyed and helped me in my personal career.
Thank you very much, Dr. Edgar, for sharing this with us. And it was quite remarkable to hear about the AVEO Oncology's development. And I wish good luck with the registrational trials and for those trials who are already on the way and will be completed very soon. And do you have anything to conclude?
Look, the only thing I would like to add here is, first of all, thank you very much for the interview. But also for the audience, I would like to share that we are very much welcoming and partnership and collaboration. So I would encourage people either from the academic side, industry partner, to reach out to us. And the best way to reach out to us is by going to our website, which is aveooncology.com, and you can request a meeting there, and then we'll connect to you in order to see which kind of collaboration are possible.
Thank you, Dr. Braendle. Indeed, it's right. And this is about collaboration and partnership always. And it's for the patient's benefit at the end. And we will leave the link for AVEO Oncology on our description. Please feel free to go there and see the pipeline and reach to our team. It was my pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Edgar, today. Thank you for this interview.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to OncoDaily on YouTube. Hit the bell icon to stay updated.